We all want our food to be more natural, right? We're always checking labels, looking for ingredients we can actually pronounce, and colors that come from a plant, not some lab. But there's this huge scientific challenge hiding in plain sight. Turns out, nature's most beautiful colors, they're often the most fragile. So today, let's dive into the fascinating science of how we're finally learning to protect them.
I mean, it's a great question, right? And the answer is pretty simple, but also kind of sad. That beautiful red color in a strawberry is just incredibly delicate. It can't handle the heat from pasteurization or the light on a grocery store shelf, or honestly, even just the passage of time. It fades away, and you're left with this brownish, unappetizing mush. And that is the core problem the entire food industry has been wrestling with. So, this really gets to the heart of the issue. On one hand, we, the consumers, are demanding natural ingredients. We're worried about the potential health risks of all those synthetic dyes. But on the other hand, from a food scientist's perspective, those natural pigments are a total nightmare to work with. They're sensitive to, well, pretty much everything. Heat, pH changes, light, oxygen, you name it.
And this really lays out the fundamental trade-off perfectly. You've got natural dyes on one side. Yeah, they can have health benefits, but they're just so unstable. Then you have the synthetic dyes. They're vibrant, they're stable, they're cheap, but they come with that cloud of potential health concerns. For decades, stability has been the winner. But the game is changing. Scientists are now on a quest to give these natural dyes the resilience they've always been missing.
Okay, so let's introduce the hero of our story, a pigment called anthocyanin, and in this case, it's coming from red cabbage. These are the molecules that give plants all those vibrant reds, blues, and purples. And they're not just pretty, they're also powerful antioxidants. The problem? Well, you probably guessed it. They are unbelievably fragile. So the real quest is, how do we capture this brilliant purple color and stop it from just falling apart? All right, so challenge number 1 is just getting the color out of the plant in the first place. You see, the old school methods often use a ton of heat or harsh solvents, which can damage these delicate little anthocyanins right from the get-go. So researchers knew they needed a much gentler, much smarter approach. And this is what they came up with. Ultrasound-assisted extraction, or UAE for short. It's so cool. Just think of it like using sound waves to gently shake the color right out of the cabbage cells. It's a green technique because it avoids all that damaging heat, which means the pigment structure and its health benefits are preserved. It's just a super clean, super efficient way to get the job done. So how does it actually work? Well, first, they start with freeze-dried cabbage. The research showed that this was the absolute best way to keep the pigment intact before you even start. Then they hit it with the ultrasound, but under very specific, optimized conditions. We're talking the perfect pH, temperature, and timing. And the results? Get this. They managed to extract over 97% of the available color. That is an incredible yield. Okay, so we've done it. We've managed to free this beautiful purple pigment, but it's still, well, it's naked and vulnerable. If we just threw it into the real world of food processing, it would be destroyed almost instantly. So the next big challenge, and maybe the biggest one of all, is to build it a suit of armor. And that brings us to the solution, this really fascinating process called microencapsulation. The whole idea is to literally build a microscopic shield around the pigment molecules, protecting them from all the harsh stuff out there. So here's how it works. The scientists take that anthocyanin extract and they mix it with a totally food-safe material. In this case, it's a starch derivative called maltodextrin. Then they spray dry the whole mixture. As all the water evaporates, that maltodextrin forms a tiny, solid shell right around the pigment. It's kind of like creating millions of microscopic purple jawbreakers. So before they do this, if you were to look at the pigment powder under a microscope, you just see this exposed, vulnerable stuff. It's just sitting there, ready to break down at the slightest hint of trouble. But after? Well, this shows the change perfectly. These are scanning electron microscope images from the study. And you can see these beautiful, smooth little spheres. These are the microcapsules. Each one is basically a tiny fortress, sealing that precious purple anthocyanin safely inside. And just how well did this work? The encapsulation efficiency was a staggering 96.36%. Now, what that means is that almost all of that precious purple pigment got successfully locked inside its little protective shield. That is a huge, huge success. Okay, so now we have our microscopic army of purple defenders. But a shield is only as good as the protection it actually offers, right? So it's time to put these little capsules through the ringer.
We're talking two ultimate tests: surviving the heat of food processing and surviving the journey through our digestive system. First up, let's talk about heat. This is the big one. Can our armored-up colors survive something like pasteurization, a process that would normally just obliterate it? And the results are just fantastic. Take a look at this. Half-life is basically the time it takes for half of the color to fade away. At 70 degrees Celsius, which is like a mild pasteurization, the unprotected color had a half-life of only about 5 hours. But the encapsulated version, it lasted for 32 hours. That's more than 6 times more stable. The shield absolutely works. All right, next up is the journey through the digestive system. We start in the mouth. As you can see, the unprotected color gets released really fast. But our little shield, it holds back a good chunk of its payload, and that is exactly what we want to see. The goal isn't a quick burst of color in your mouth, it's about a nice controlled delivery throughout the entire system. Then we move on to the stomach, a super harsh, acidic environment. And again, the unprotected pigment just takes a beating. It degrades a lot. But our encapsulated pigment, it holds up so much better. It's really showing off the power of that protective shield. And finally, we get to the intestines. Now, at first glance, you might look at this and think, wait, the protected version did worse? But this is actually the secret to its success. That lower number doesn't mean the pigment was destroyed. It means the shield provided a slow, controlled release. It's delivering that antioxidant payload exactly where our body can best absorb it, instead of letting it all get wiped out at once. Look, all of this science is incredible, but it doesn't really mean anything if it doesn't work in a real food product that people would actually want to eat, right? So for the final, ultimate test, the researchers took their new creation out of the lab and into the kitchen. What they did was create a yogurt, and they fortified it with their brand new, stable, natural purple colorant. I mean, this is the ultimate real-world test. The big question is, how did it taste? Well, a sensory panel rated the yogurt an 8.3 out of 9 for overall acceptability. That is an outstanding score. It proves that the product wasn't just some cool science experiment. It was actually delicious. The colorant was a total success, in every way. And what's more, the panelists specifically called out its vibrant color, its excellent taste, and its appealing aroma. This is so important because it proves that the encapsulation didn't just protect the pigment. It did it without creating any weird textures or off flavors. It really is the complete package. So, when you step back, what we've really seen is this remarkable journey. It started with identifying a fragile but super beneficial natural pigment, then figuring out a gentle way to get it out, and finally building a microscopic suit of armor to protect it. This whole process successfully created a stable, beautiful, and healthy natural food color. And that leaves us with a pretty exciting thought. If we can save the color purple, what other fragile wonders of nature, from the deep reds of berries to the bright greens of delicate herbs, what can we protect next?